This chart has been making its rounds on social media. It's a heat map from Goldman Sachs, showing the forward price to earnings of every S&P 500 sector and benchmarked against historical data. So at first glance, it looks like a cheat code for investors. Just with some simple pattern recognition, tech, or IT in this case, consumer discretionary, and industrials looks expensive, hence denoted in red. Real estate, healthcare, and energy on the other hand looks cheap in blue. But here's the thing, drawing conclusions from this chart alone can be pretty misleading, especially when you're layering on historical percentiles. It's easy to lose sight of the real world context behind the numbers. So before we jump to conclusions, let's take a step back. Let's first understand how these sectors are defined, what kind of companies sits within them, and how they've actually performed this year. And most importantly, how we can make sense of valuations in a way that actually reflects market reality. So if that kind of deeper thinking around investing is your thing, then you'll probably enjoy our weekly newsletter, Investing Bites. So each issue breaks down short, real-world examples to help you sharpen your investing framework and make better decisions. So just hit the link in the description below and we'll send the latest issue straight to your inbox. Now, when analysts talk about sectors like technology or industrials, what do they actually mean? So these sectors are defined using the GICS framework, the Global Industry Classification Standard. So it breaks the S&P 500 into 11 major sectors, grouping companies based on their core business operations. So for example, the tech sector includes names like Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia, companies that not only shape the sector's narrative, but they also dominate in terms of weight and performance. And here's a sneak peek of the top 10 holdings in XLK, which is the ETF that tracks the tech sector. And on that note, here's a rundown of the other 10 S&P sectors, their corresponding ETF tickers, and a few major companies that you'll probably recognize. But don't be surprised if some of these names aren't actually what you expect them to be. So for instance, Meta Platforms and Alphabet actually falls under the communication services, not technology. And Amazon and Tesla, they're classified under consumer discretionary instead. And that's because the GICS framework groups companies based on where the majority of their revenues actually come from. And now that we know how they're defined, let's take a look at how they've performed in 2025 so far. So there's been some very clear divergence, with sectors like communication services, utilities, and IT or technology leading the charge, while others, like real estate and healthcare, have lagged behind significantly. And these differences aren't random though. So some sectors are riding on powerful narratives like artificial intelligence, infrastructure, or energy usage, while others are facing headwinds like regulation, interest rate pressures, or shifting consumer demands. And the broader stock market in general is just expressing their overall view with their dollar bills. And let's take the best and worst performing sectors as a starting point, beginning with communication services, which is leading the pack in 2025. Interestingly, this outperformance is basically driven by just a few names. And the top 3 holdings in the sector, Meta, Alphabet, and Netflix, they make up nearly 50% of this entire ETF's weight. And this year alone, it's Meta and Netflix that are doing the heavy lifting. So Meta is up around 28% year to date, thanks to the strong advertising recovery, continued growth in Reels and WhatsApp monetization, and they're basically proving that they can generate real returns on its AI investment, which inevitably helps justify their higher spend. So Netflix has also surged over 30% as its sharing crackdown continues to boost subscriber growth, while its ad-supported tier gains traction. So investors are also slowly warming up to the narrative that Netflix is becoming a dominant global media platform with strong pricing power and improving margins. So Alphabet, on the other hand, only posted a modest 3% gain year to date. And that's largely due to the ongoing investor concern about the durability of their search business model in a world where AI's large language model might displace traditional search. On the flip side, let's look at the worst performing sector of the year, healthcare. So on paper, this sector looks like a defensive play, but in 2025, it's been anything but defensive. So it's been a mixed bag with more negatives than positives. And the sector ETF's largest holding, Eli Lilly, Johnson & Johnson has been one of the few bright spots, up roughly 18% year to date. But the drag came from names like United Health, which is down a staggering 50% year to date. And the company has been rocked by rising medical costs and increasing scrutiny over its claims practices. So broadly speaking, macro conditions haven't been kind to healthcare this year. So pricing pressures, tighter policies, and changes in consumption have all contributed to weak sentiments. Which then brings us back to the initial chart that kicked off this entire discussion. Goldman Sachs sector PE comparison versus history. So at first glance, it looks like a heat map of opportunities and risks. So you might be tempted to think that healthcare and real estate looks cheap, trading well below their 10 and 30-year valuation averages. While tech and industrials on the other hand looks dangerously expensive, sitting at the 90th percentile or even higher. But as we have seen, price alone doesn't tell the full story. So there may be opportunities hiding in the unloved sectors, but only if the underlying fundamentals still make sense. And on the flip side, just because a sector is expensive doesn't mean it's a bubble. So some sectors trade at a premium for a reason, whether it's superior growth, margin profile, or dominant market share. And immediately, three potential concerns when looking at such charts come to mind. First, assuming low PE means cheap and high PE means expensive, without considering why those multiples even exist. So a low PE might reflect real problems, while a high PE can reflect strong growth and pricing power. 2. Over-relying on historical percentiles. So comparing today's business models to those of 10 or even 30 years ago may actually be misleading. The structure of the tech sector in 1995 is nothing like what we see today. Third, making decisions at the sector level without digging into the companies behind them. So not all companies in a sector are created equal. Now, if you actually shift your attention to the right side of the chart, you'll see another interesting metric. The PE, price to earnings, of each sector relative to the S&P 500, along with its historical percentile. And long story short, after this mumbo jumbo, what does this mean? So it's not just looking at whether the sector is expensive on its own terms, but whether it's expensive compared to the overall market. So if let's say tech is trading at 30 times PE, while the S&P is at 22 times, the relative premium is measured and ranked over a historical time frame. So when you see that both industrials and tech are near the top in both their own historical PE percentiles and their relative PE versus the S&P, it might signal to investors that they're commanding a premium to the rest of the market and much more so than usual. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. So over the past decade, the composition of the S&P 500 has changed dramatically. So sectors like information technology have grown in weight, partly due to price appreciation, but also because of the structural shift in the economy. That means when we say S&P 500, we are increasingly talking about a market that's being driven by a handful of dominant sectors and even dominant companies that are all in the trillion-dollar club. And this is where the PE versus S&P 500 metric becomes a bit like a self-reinforcement feedback loop. Now, think about it. If tech is trading at a rich premium and it's forming a bigger and bigger part of the index, it drags the entire market multiple higher. And that in turn makes other sectors look cheap by comparison, even if nothing has fundamentally changed for these other sectors. So while this relative metric can help surface potential anomalies, it shouldn't be taken at face value. Investors need to be mindful of what's driving those differences. So, the ultimate question, what can you actually take away from all of this? The reality is, markets are complex. So charts like the one from Goldman are helpful in guiding our attention, but they're not a shortcut to investment decisions. And valuation metrics, whether absolute or relative, are just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. And what really matters is how you interpret the data with context. And ask yourself, why does this sector trade at a premium? What's driving performance under the hood? And is the market trying to price something that I might be missing? And instead of chasing what looks cheap or avoiding what looks expensive just because of the color code, focus on understanding the underlying business drivers. At the end of the day, the best investors aren't just data driven, they are also sense makers. And they don't stop at what the numbers say, they actually ask what the numbers mean. And since you have stayed with us till the end, I'm sure you love investing as much as we do. So don't forget to sign up for Investing Bites with the link below. And this is CK from Piranha Profit signing off. Till next time, keep winning.